Right, I get it. AI can seem a bit scary. You may feel that it's not for you, that it's a younger person's game. And, well, how do you even get started with AI anyway? Fair enough, I do get it. But you don't want to be an Aunt Gladys. Who's Aunt Gladys? Honestly, you've met her before, and it's even possible that you've been Aunt Gladys in the past. So, this is your opportunity to actually learn about AI and become, if not comfortable with it, at least familiar with it. And don't worry, I'm going to tell you exactly how to get started with AI simply and painlessly. In case you don't know, and you probably don't, I'm Andre, and I help you reclaim your creativity after 40 because, well, I'm doing it too. And yes, I use AI to do it. Also, I once disappointed the actor Paul Walker in the middle of a scene. All right, so who is Aunt Gladys and how does she connect with AI? Think about this. To me, AI today is very much the way the internet was back in like the late 80s and the 90s. We're mostly over 40 here, so you probably remember that not everyone had the internet back in like the late 80s and 90s. You might even remember the first of your friends to get the internet. You'd maybe like go over there just to like scroll on some weird BBS that their older brother found. You might remember that whenever you connected to the internet, it sounded like screaming robots, and it actually took up like a phone line. So you'd be on the internet and then you'd hear your mom downstairs yelling that she needed to call Sandra and so get off the internet because the phone just sounds like screaming robots and she needs to call Sandra and you're on the internet so she can't call Sandra. You remember that? And like remember how like slow that it was? Even just to load a photo, maybe a photo of the risque variety, you would have to wait like 5 minutes. You'd click on the link for the photo and then you'd go and get like a glass of juice or go to the washroom because you know that even after a minute or two, they would just be like the top of the person's head. Remember the people who weren't interested in the internet? The people who thought that like it wasn't for them, that it was only for like young people and perverts who were interested in photos of the risque variety. Maybe they even found the internet a little bit scary. And now those same people are the subject of memes. And they type in things like chicken and mushroom casserole and they post it on their Facebook feed because they mistook it for Google. People like Aunt Gladys. Aunt Gladys, who still has an AOL email account. Aunt Gladys, who has like a terabyte of malware on her 13-year-old laptop. Aunt Gladys, who thinks that tracking cookies are hackers trying to steal her recipe for oatmeal raisin. I don't want to be an Aunt Gladys, and neither do you. Think about just how much we use the internet. It's actually possible to accidentally spend an entire day connected to the internet in one way or another. And think about it. You wake up in the morning and you check your email and notifications. Then you put on a podcast while you prepare and eat breakfast. Then you get in your car and you put on a Spotify playlist. You get to work and you log on to your job's web-based system. During lunch, you maybe watch a YouTube video or two. Then you get back in your car and it's another Spotify playlist. You get home and you look online for a recipe, or maybe you actually just decide to order in using Uber Eats. Then it's Netflix for a couple of hours, and then a guided meditation before you go to sleep. All of it online. No one in the 80s and 90s could have predicted that. Certainly not Aunt Gladys. And right now, at this moment, is when I think we decide whether or not we want to be the AI equivalent of Aunt Gladys. Now, you may not like the idea of AI. You may be overwhelmed by the whole idea or concept of it. You may even have some ethical or even moral issues with it. I mean, even I do, but that goes for the internet as well. And it doesn't change the fact that AI is here. You know, the genie is out of the bottle. Look, there's this guy, Ethan Mollick. He wrote an excellent book called Co-Intelligence. If you're interested at all in AI, if you're worried about it, read that book. All right, Ethan Mollick, Co-Intelligence. I'll actually link it in the description. Excellent book. And one of the things that he points out is that the AI we know today is the worst AI we will ever know. Meaning it's only going to get better. Meaning it's only going to become more ubiquitous. I just don't see a realistic option to opt out. Just in the same way that there wasn't really a realistic option to opt out of the internet 30, 40 years ago. And again, this isn't about good or bad, it just is. Like with the internet, there are some bad aspects, good aspects, but not learning about it, not being able to use it safely and effectively isn't going to help you. That goes for the internet and it goes for AI. So now's the time to learn about it, become familiar with it, so as to avoid having to catch up later with all the Gladyses of the world. Gladyses? Gladi? No, it's Gladyses. And anyway, it's pretty damned interesting and pretty damned useful. I use it to come up with ideas, to write first drafts, to plan out tasks or projects. I know people who use it to analyze their workouts, to get hairstyle or outfit ideas, or just to come up with quick and simple recipes, like even for a chicken and mushroom casserole recipe. All right, so let's say that I've convinced you. You are open to learning about AI, but where do you start? So let's keep this super hyper ultra simple. Start by going to chatgpt.com. So it's literally that. I've put the link in the description. Just go there. Start with that. Then you create an account if you want to. If not, no problem. You can go on like as a guest. There's some limitations, but to get started, no problem. Now I'm going to give you a prompt to try. A prompt is simply the instructions you give an AI. So that's the actual verb, is to prompt an AI, prompting AI. If you are interested in learning more about writing effective prompts, I've got a free guide to prompting for beginners. It's also linked down in the description, so you can download that. It's, I think, 28 pages. So it goes through the whole process of prompting, what makes a good prompt. It gives you some examples, even some templates, and you can use that to give yourself a sort of crash course on using AI. But for now, super, ultra, hyper simple. So here's the prompt you're going to try right now. Give me 7 creative exercises that I can complete in 15 minutes to practice, and then put in your chosen creative outlet. So for me, it would be drawing or writing fiction. So once you've written in the prompt, just hit generate and you'll see that it'll start doing exactly that. So now you've got 7 exercises geared specifically towards your creative outlet of choice. So that's a whole week's worth of creative exercises that you can complete in 15 minutes. Now, if you look at those exercises and you think, I don't really like any of them, ask for more. Or if you look at them and you think, well, 3 of them are pretty good, but the other 4, ask for 4 more. Ask for 12, ask for 14, whatever. If there's some that you think, that's not too bad, but I'd prefer if it was like this, well, do it like that, right? You don't have to, there's no quiz. I'm not going to be testing you on this to make sure that you followed those exercises to the letter. You can even ask it, the AI, to make some changes to certain exercises. That's often referred to as refining. You can tell it, exercise number 5, it's not bad, but could you make it something that I could do outdoors, right? Or you could say, all of these exercises are great, but I really do want to maximize my time outside. So could you give me outdoor versions of all these exercises? Try that prompt, take a look at the 7 exercises, and choose out the one that inspires you the most, that you're most excited to try, and put it down in the comments. The great thing about that is that since most of us will have different creative outlets, we should have kind of a mix of different exercises. Okay, so how did I disappoint the late great actor Paul Walker in the middle of a scene? So this was for the movie Timeline, which was not a success, despite it having a decent cast, an excellent director, the late great Richard Donner, who also directed all of the Lethal Weapon films, the original Superman, Goonies. So this guy's like, he was a legend. But the film didn't do super well. It was based on a Michael Crichton novel. It had everything going for it, really. But for whatever reason, it didn't turn out that great. So this was this one scene. I was just an extra, but I did have like multiple days, right? Because I was in quite a few scenes. I was like a grad student, basically, on like this research project led by a professor played by Billy Connolly. Billy Connolly, by the way, one of the nicest guys you could ever meet. Super nice. I have nothing but good things to say about Billy Connolly. Great guy. So anyway, the scene was celebrating the professor, Billy Connolly's, birthday. The scene was eventually cut. But in the scene, we were all supposed to sort of gather around as Billy Connolly gets his cake. And so I was actually standing right behind Mr. Connolly, right over his shoulder. And so we sang Happy Birthday, or a version of Happy Birthday. Maybe that's why it was cut, was because we sang this like weird, because Happy Birthday apparently is like really expensive to get the rights to use it, or at least it was. So we had to sing this like kind of bastardized version of it. And then we all sort of cheer and like, yeah, and I remember I even, I slapped him on the shoulder and all this kind of stuff. And now next to me was this guy named Randall or Randolph or something like that. And he was a like childhood friend of Paul Walker's, and was occasionally on set as like his like assistant. And when they needed, extras and stuff like that, he would, be given a bit of a role. And so he was standing next to me. And then beyond him, next to him, was Paul Walker. And we all cheered, for the professor and clapped and all this kind of stuff. And then Paul shoves his hand into a cooler that was near him and pulls out a beer. And then turns and hands it to Randall or Randolph or whatever. I should remember his name because he literally had it tattooed on his back. But anyway, he goes and he hands it to Randall. Now, Randall, though, does not notice. Who does notice? This guy. And so I look over and I'm looking at the beer just hanging there. And I look up and meet eyes with Paul Walker. Those sky blue eyes, right? Just locked on. And now at this point, I've got a choice. The scene is still going. I'm directly in the background. The cameras are there. And I've got a choice. I could nudge Randall and then, give a nod. I don't have to say anything. Just nudge Randall and then nod at the beer. Randall grabs the beer, right? Scene complete kind of thing. Or I could have actually reached across Randall and grabbed the beer myself, cracked it open. Now, if I had any real talent as an actor, I would have done one of those things. What I did instead was nothing. I just stood there, stared into his eyes like, deer in the proverbial headlights, and did nothing. And so I'm sure, I disappointed Paul Walker. But it was pretty much like that moment that kind of told me that I am not, I'm not built to be an actor. Because what really happened, it was this thinking, this overthinking of, well, am I allowed to do something? Like, can I grab that beer? What if I fumble it and it rolls under like a camera or something and like hits a switch or hits, unplugs something or pops open and just starts spraying beer all over the equipment and all over the camera and all over Paul Walker, or like it was just one of those things that I thought like I'm getting paid like I don't even remember how much. It was something like $100 a day or something. Like I can't. I'm not an actual actor. I can't just grab that beer from Paul Walker, right? But that's what I should have done, but I didn't. So I disappointed Paul Walker. Anyway, thanks for watching, and see you next time.